So we've got about 10 of you in total, which is great. We've got Alana on the line as well, who is responsible for our mental matching process. She is under risk assessments and making sure that everything goes to plan with our mentees. So she's here to support as well. I'd just like to again thank you. Today, I've got the agenda up here, but in essence, I thought I'd give you a light whistle-stop tour of things like ILT, where are we now, a bit of an update, clarity on what is mentoring for us. So how do we do mentoring within the ILT, but we're still learning because, of course, we're a very new charity in our embryonic phases. So anything that we can learn from you guys along the way would be amazing. We have, we have some practicalities on the structure and an insight into the demographics, so the type of women that you'll be working with as well. But what I would say contextually is we work with a broad demographic. They come from, so we don't tick a box and say, right, we deal with mental health and that's our focus. We don't tick boxes. What we do is we say, any woman that has been through a process and they're vulnerable or disadvantaged in any way, but they're ready for a development program which takes them to the next phase in their life, then we will support them. So that means that we are often dealing with women that come from complex backgrounds with complex lives. Sometimes not, sometimes it's more simple, but there is a whole diverse range, but we'll work with you to make sure that you are prepared for the mentee that's specific to you. We're trying to do a few breakout question and answer sessions. I've plotted a couple in the day, but it's going to be a tight time frame. I was very conscious of your time, so we can pick things up outside of this session as well. We've got a guest mentor speaker coming on at 9 o'clock around about, Nicola Kershaw. She's been doing some amazing work with the charity. And she can also share some latest thinking with you, and you can ask her some questions as well. So let's make that a very pragmatic session where we can all get involved and learn from Nicola, but we are here to support you beyond the session too. Bit on safeguarding, bit on reporting, because this is really important. It is a vulnerable group and we need to stay connected. The team support that's available here, and an introduction to our new learning management system, of which we will attach you to that, and then you'll get access to some online learning as well. Just to give it a little bit of context, I'm not going to go through all of the statistics, but when you look at the statistics, Alana's producing the latest version of a report around all of the statistics globally and in the UK about how women are disproportionately affected by a plethora of issues. And I'm talking about vulnerability and disadvantaged. I'm not talking about the world of work where we talk about gender equality and inclusion and pay gaps. I'm talking about severe disadvantage when it goes out to communities, and that's education. You can look across the whole kind of wealth of activity. Education, modern day slavery, sexual exploitation. The figures here, you know, when you look at the national referral mechanism around sexual exploitation and modern day slavery, is severely underreported because of the implications. So even some of the statistics don't really highlight the depth of challenge that people are experiencing at the moment. And if you think about COVID-19 and how domestic violence and all of those things have come to the fore because it's been accentuated, it's just put shining light on the troubles that already exist, and we need to do something more with it. It's great to see some of the government response. We'll see more hopefully along the journey. But yeah, and the implications for the families as well. So it's not just about the woman as and the implications for her. I don't like necessarily to use the word victim, but it's the family unit, it's the community, it's the social aspect. There are bigger implications for some of these challenges. And then things like body dysmorphia, and in this growing another pandemic, which is actually this, you know, the age of narcissism and what that's doing to mental health. And social media, its implications. We have a challenge, but there's lots of amazing work that's been done by charities and organisations to help to address some of this too, and it's just getting more and more sophisticated. So I don't want to paint a bleak picture, but I do want to kind of highlight there's a lot of work to be done that we can galvanise some support around. COVID-19, just a quick whistle-stop tour of this as well. You know, globally, it's got huge impacts because of the economic kind of inclusion of women into the world of work and its implications. But things like here in the UK, if we just look, the soaring of cases reported where perpetrators are actually also self-referring, but 700% increase in calls to helpline and to helplines, and perpetrators also kind of asking for help too. It's a really interesting dynamic that's going on. But also, women form part of the majority of frontline workers, and they're the majority of low paid. And we want to shift that balance. So when we talk about gender equality and inclusion, I think we need to start including more on the topic of social mobility. So inclusion being deep into our societies, how do we bring the most disadvantaged through as well? And we've got stories, and I'm sure victim support, lots of organisations will have stories that when there's a support framework that sits around these women that helps them to navigate towards financial independence and empowerment, and starts a whole kind of new life based on the skills of resilience, that actually it's life-changing. So we know, the statistics show that we can make a difference. We can start to really make a difference in these areas. So whilst there's a lot of challenges, there's also a lot that we can do to make some changes. The serious and organised crime and criminality has become a huge part of the work that we do, because the Home Office have actually engaged as in a partnership with us. And we're looking at the ways in which disadvantaged and vulnerability also leads to certain pathways into criminality, coercion, corruption, grooming, a whole kind of range of issues. And there's a lot of statistics. What I will say is, if you're interested in knowing more about what's going on there for women in the learning management system, under the mentoring side of things, we've actually put some content there for you, so you can read, you can learn what is going on for women out there. If you want to learn more about serious and organised crime or mental health, we'll build those resources up so you just feel a little bit more informed about each of the areas and the depth of challenge that we're facing. But also not to be consumed by it, because it could be a little bit boring in its own right. We don't want to cause you mental health challenges as well, reading just the depth of challenge that's out there. Now, there's a huge piece of work that's been done around ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences as well. And you've probably seen some of this in some of the safeguarding work, the mentoring work, if you've done some work within communities in the past. But adverse childhood experiences not only create new or kind of pathways into some of the darker kind of criminal side of things, but it's also pathways into things like mental health, long-term health challenges. So you'll see here with adverse childhood experiences, of which many will, there's 67% of our population, on this call, many of us will have experienced adverse childhood experiences. We need to be careful of that, by the way, when we come to our mentoring. We'll talk about that later on. And we are here to support you too, so come to us if there's any concerns. But 67%, at least one adverse childhood experience, and that's abuse, so emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, household changes, so domestic violence, mental health challenges, and that's on the growth, substance abuse, parental separation, divorce, incarcerated parents, or neglect, emotional and physical neglect. So none of these will be, I think, unfamiliar to people, but the long-term implications, the statistics are now showing that, these ACEs have implications for long-term depression, suicide attempts, addictions to drink, alcohol, other substances, that even physical, like lung disease and, heart failure and liver disease, lots of different. So really important. And these things can be changed, because there's also on the right side, you'll see, and there's a lot of research again online that supports this, that actually ACEs can lead towards negative outcomes, but early intervention and the ability to create some resilience leads towards better positive outcomes. It helps people to understand the strategies that they can deploy to become more resilient and therefore they're making better life choices that, can elongate their life, reduce mental health, etc. There's some great research on there. I'm not going to go into detail, but know that resilience is where we want to move these girls towards, because even as we move them towards a career, they make a step in to a job. That is not the end of their dilemmas. It's just the start of their journey, right? It's not the end. And we know when we're dealing with CEOs, executive leaders, right through the organization, that everybody has their inner demons. We all do at varying different levels. And so these girls will be coming from a space where they will have some challenges too. And that's why we like a longevity around the service. We don't say, hey, you're on this program for 12 months and then you're off. We want to see this as being a lifelong kind of alumni that they can come back into and get some support as well. This is our vision, 100,000 women and girls by 2030. We've got some kind of targets to reach along the way. I'm not going to play into that in too much detail, but we are really reliant on referrals, getting access to women, making sure that they're coming through our programs. COVID-19 is presenting a particular problem because actually, whilst we're up and ready, we've pivoted across to the digital and agile space. We're going, yay, bring the girls on. And actually what's happening is you've got organizations that sit between us and the girls because we take referrals. And actually, it's harder to get out to the communities. Number one, because of the lack of digital connection. Number two, because of charities and organizations not fully functional at this time. Some even closing, some struggling to survive, some struggling with capacity. But we are doing everything within our power to get to those girls. So I just want you to know that. But any advice along the way, we would love to hear from you. So what do we do? I'm not going to go through these. All of these, but you will have the slides, as I say, online. But we join the dots. So for us, it's about the mobilization of energy and effort on the business side. So how can we leverage assets, resources that help us to deliver services to the girls? Because we've got a whole range. This is just a few organizations that have been involved so far. We've got a massive range of organizations that we want to leverage that are helping to support us along the way, leaders from these organizations. We need to get to a point of business partnerships, which is not what we've done before. So we need to move into that space. But some really great organizations that are getting behind developing the women and girls. The other side of that, so to the right-hand side, we work with some really big organizations here, but also some smaller organizations. Again, we're not representing the whole range, but you've got the Home Office. It's a real multi-agency approach. Anna Freud, Sophie Hayes, DePaul. So everything from addiction, mental health, homelessness, a whole range of issues, special educational needs schools. So the girls will come from a variety of different places. I won't go through this. This is a timeline of the work that we do. And just to highlight what we do here in the UK around academies, so mentoring, coaching, masterclasses, eventually work opportunities, etc. If you go to the developing world, it's a very different starting block. So just to point to here, when we work in Kenya and when we work in South Africa, and we want to lift and drop this internationally, right? Our plan is to grow this, but to grow in a steady way. So we're not falling over in terms of the level and quality of service. But to the left-hand side, if you look down at the bottom at the little blocks, when you go to Kenya and South Africa, it's about building the foundation. So to try to take an academy to the remotest district in Nairobi, you can't apply an academy. But what you can do is set up water systems, school business farms to create sustainability and funding back into the schools. Lots of water, refurbish the classrooms, provide them with the resources, and then the technology. So we're distributing technology into different locations as well. The end game is to also move them into this academy structure. So they will then get access to online content and mentoring and things like that. So we're going to be starting those programs very soon with some of our charity partners to test. These are our chosen 5 locations for this year. And it's in line with what's happening in the most deprived communities. It's linked to the work of the Home Office and the research that they've done. So Leeds, Bradford, Grimsby, Liverpool, Merseyside, Birmingham, and London and home counties. But actually, because we're agile and virtual, it doesn't make a difference. And one of the things I would say is some of the comments that we've had from organizations that partner with us. like the home offices, they've looked for local mentors. And I'm like, okay, let's look more broadly, because if we start to contain the women based on looking for location, then we're closing down our minds and we're closing down the opportunity. So for us, it's about making the right mentor matches, no matter where they are in the country. And if we need to do some local things, we will put interventions in place, but to really open and broaden up the prospects of the girls. And that's our intention. That's where we want to go with this, not to close them down. How we deliver our services. So in essence, this is our framework for delivery. We build strategic partnerships, business, charities, organizations. So we're creating this collaborative effort that stops the silo mentality and then releases that energy. We are scaling up our programs. We are building our business leadership community, and we are developing a reciprocal learning environment as well. You'll see our framework here, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on each of those areas soon. But we've got our academies. We've got different levels dependent on how you need to enter into the program. Some are for leaders, and some are for the beneficiaries. So again, back to this notion of reciprocity. Our support is agile now, and lots of the girls are embracing it, but some girls can't or won't, because it's just not where they're at the moment. And we will respond to those needs on a case-by-case basis. So we make this individualistic, as well as kind of creating comprehensive framework. And then we've invested in a learning management system. We've turned it on in the space of 2 weeks. We have done some amazing work so far to put some content on there, but we need more content. Asda, I'm going to be chatting to you later, because we need some more great content on here that creates a really inspirational journey. If you can help, brilliant. Videos, online content, learning resources, toolkits, everything that can help us to get there. This is the framework which we deliver. So where you will be operating most likely, if you look at the very bottom, you've got the Raising Hopes Academy, and you've got the Inspiring Futures Academy. And those are for the beneficiaries. Those are for the women and girls that we're working with. Raising Hopes is a really light touch approach to the programs. Inspiring Futures is more comprehensive. There's certification, they've got to go through a journey, they've got to tick the boxes, they've got to follow their manuals along the way. And we will let you know which journey that girl is on when we engage with you personally and match you up in the mentoring relationship. But again, it's based on the girl's needs, capacity, etc., confidence to deploy, to engage with a certain journey. Get involved, just read through this. There's different ways to get involved. Our academies for our beneficiaries, we're doing psychometric training, masterclasses, mentoring. So if you want to do some more stuff, by golly, we can use you, okay? So think about the journey as a whole. As a mentor, fantastic. But if you have capacity or the desire to even practice your filming skills and your whatever it is, then we can use you, okay? So chat to us about anything that you would like to deliver above and beyond the mentoring program as well. And if you can't, that's okay too, yeah? How we mentor. I've just noticed that we've got Nicola on the line as well. Hey, Nicola.
Hi.
How long are you available to us for?
I've got 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to stop there. I'll just do a definition of what is mentoring and coaching, okay? But then I want to overlay it with context. Coaching and mentoring, and thank you, Gwen, your resources have been amazing. You will be spotting things along the way that, so very cool. 12:30 last night, bung, 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 getting the final bits in there. So coaching and mentoring are learning relationships which help the individual to take charge. I'm going to say take charge, but we need to consider the group that we're working with, of their own development, to release their potential and to achieve the results which they value. So it's a learning process. It's a safe process for them to realize their full potential. And quite often they don't know what that is. Quite often they are surrounded by a group of people which will limit their understanding of what that potential is. So for this mentoring group to open that understanding up, and what we find quite consistently with the group, for example, because they have often been connected and supported by healthcare workers, social workers, that's what they see as a career. And it's an absolutely very valid career, by the way. But it might not always be right for them, but they might not have the full picture. They might not understand what motivates and drives them, and why they would navigate towards that career. So understanding the motivations, drivers, strengths, and what careers look like is a really important part of this journey. Them taking charge, I just want to say, taking charge in the more sophisticated world of business is what we just see and expect, and we don't always see it either. But we take it out to this community, and taking charge can be a really tough thing for them. For them to even take charge of getting up in the morning and brushing their teeth and doing self-care is really tough. So I would really encourage you to be really patient on this journey, because they might not always be able to take charge. That's one of the challenges that they will have. So for the learning process, to consider, how do you help them to take charge, but not maybe make it the first expectation of them based on where they're coming from. And the other one is from David Clutterbuck. So a mentor is a more experienced individual that will be willing to share knowledge with someone else experienced in a relationship, and that position of kind of mutual trust. It is about building trust. It is about the relationship. That's what we will ask you to form in the very first early stages. It's just that relationship of trust, and to share knowledge as you go along, but be careful of your own biases that might come in the way of that. So your own knowledge, your own experience, and what you therefore might navigate them towards. So releasing their potential rather than yours. Now, I'm going to just quickly pass over to Nicola, because Nicola, you have a mentoring relationship already. You've been, quite involved with the charity, and I wonder if anybody has any questions so far that they'd like to ask of an experienced mentor. Nicola, do you just want to give a quick overview of what you do? Sorry about therapy, dog and training in the background.
Hi, I'm Nicola Kershaw. I'm a lawyer. I head up the IP technology legal team for BNP Paribas, and I've been mentoring Alana through Inspiring Leadership Trust for about 6 months now. I've done quite a lot of mentoring in the past as well, so it's something that I find incredibly rewarding. I'm sure that's why you guys are signed up, but it really, really is, and I really feel that you can make an impact on these people's lives. It's amazing. I didn't know whether you had questions, or I could just share a few tips from my experience. And usually the first session, I just say, it's like, don't have any expectation, just have a get to know you session. I share about myself, obviously professionally, there is definitely a line, but I will talk a little bit about my kids, about, to let them know me. But my first session, I usually try and meet them with the parent, and share about yourself, share about why you're doing the career you're doing, and what motivates you and what inspires you, because it's to get to know them as well. But I also find that sometimes in these relationships, it's almost like, if you're a brick wall and you're saying, I'm expecting you to trust me, and I'm expecting you to tell me your worries in terms of not therapy, but in terms of your career and how you're going to get to where you want to be. And yet you're not sharing anything with them. So I basically have a policy where they can ask me anything about my career. I will tell them how much I earn if they want to know how much I earn. I'll tell them how much other people earn, like partners in law firms earn. I'm not in a partner in my area. If that's what they want to know about, because as teenagers, they're quite inquisitive about that stuff. But then, so the first session, definitely sort of getting to know you and kind of trying to keep an open mind about what their career goals are. And then with the following sessions, I genuinely try and think before the session, and Inspiring Leadership Trust have amazing materials and they're so useful, but I try not to be too rigid, because sometimes my mentee wants to just chat, particularly at the moment with COVID, wanted to talk most of the time about her school and the situation. And we talked a lot about self-motivation, and how she can stay focused, and potentially strategies for, she's living in a very small living arrangement in a family of 4 in a 2-bedroom flat, very little outdoor space. And so trying to talk about ways she could kind of try and navigate her work schedule with her family. So talking about mechanisms, that was more of the focus of our session than the compass points. But then usually we do kind of go on to the compass points afterwards, and as Lee said, it's really forced me to open up my mind. I focus one person at the moment, she wants to be a lawyer, and that's quite helpful because I am a lawyer, but I'm really exploring with her, is that the right career for her, and does she definitely want to do it, and what does she want to study at university, and her family had never done higher education. So, talking to her mum's first question to me was, does she really need to go to university? Well, to be a lawyer, well, yeah, actually she does. And so it's almost like gaining her mum's trust and giving her mum information as well, and always inviting her mum to join the sessions if she wants to, and to make sure that Alana gets the support that she needs as well, because there's no point me saying all this stuff to her if her mum's not bought in. So making sure it's a journey with her and her family and her school to the extent it needs to be. And that was something else we had to arrange, was with her school to make sure she had the time and that they were supportive of this. She wasn't officially at schools partnered with ILT, she was sort of applied on her own. So liaising with her head teacher to make sure that they knew what she was doing, and that she didn't feel uncomfortable with this situation. But generally, I found it incredibly rewarding, and I think that Alana does too. And I get a lot of positive feedback from her. But that's not really the reason you do it. But I guess it's just sort of something that I really encourage you guys to do, and it's so beneficial, I think, to her, but also I get a lot out of it as well, and it really challenges some of my thought processes too. So I don't know if any of you have any questions or
actually, I do have one. My name is Buiche, and I'm currently in Istanbul, but I live in London. I mean, it's you sound amazing and inspiring. I reckon there's an official process when you reach out to the school or the family of the beneficiaries, because I agree that this is going to add enormous value. How did you do that?
Well, it was actually, I was paired up through Inspiring Leadership Trust. So Lee would be able to tell you more about the process, but I was paired up. But she applied, she had a friend who was on the program through her school. And then she contacted Inspiring Leadership Trust herself. And obviously you go through all the background checks. And the first time, pre-COVID, you do meet in public places and things like that. But there's official process was done through Inspiring Leadership Trust. So they handled all of that aspect for me.
Okay. Including meeting with the family, friends, or the school of that person.
I initiated a lot of that, and I think that's why I probably put it onto you. The thing is, I find with particularly these younger girls, and potentially with some of these schools where they have so much to do and they're totally overworked, I initiated it. So I prompted to go and speak to the head teacher and ask for a call with him, because I didn't want to just do it over email. I didn't want to just be this formal email, but I was the one who reached out to him when this was set up, because I wanted to make sure he knew that Alana was taking this time to do this work. And I have to reach out to her. I think Inspiring Leadership Trust generally as a policy say the parent should be there as the first thing, but I'll definitely say, how is your mum? Is your mom supportive? How is that going? Is there anything she wants to ask me? So I think a lot of it, you need to be quite confident in your role, because don't wait for your mentee to contact you. Like Alana rarely ever reaches out to me, but when I reach out to her, goodness, she has so much to say and so much she wants to ask about and talk about, but she waits for me. Even when I say to her, you can contact me anytime you have anything, I'm here, just call me or email me, and she has all my work details. She doesn't, but then when I reach out to her, she has a lot to say.
Yeah, okay, sure, thank you.
And I want to build on that. So I would always encourage you, when you're making steps within this process, because we can't cover everything as a charity, but we do have some strict, relatively strong guidelines that we have to adhere to. If there's things that we can do to support or just keep us informed along the way, so we can work with you to maximize how we work together and maybe tackle some of the challenges that might exist. So always kind of keep that connection back into the charity, and that's probably the safest bet, that if the questions aren't answered, then let's work together to help to facilitate it. Shall I do a quick round robin? So I'll base it on what we've who kicked off. Helen, did you have any questions?
No, I think so far. I mean, I've been writing quite a few notes, and I think a lot of it, you have explained it really well. And I think, but it'll come down to how it all starts. And I think it'll naturally, the questions will come up, won't they? As you go along. Yeah. And that's where I'm feeling like, as long as I can refer back to you guys for help with that. Because, you know, for me, it is the first time that I'm doing it, you know, just to give me that little bit of confidence that I'm on the right way and on the right path. But it's good to know that you guys are there to help. You know?
Yeah, and we've got lots of online tools for the mentors that we've built a mentor pathway, which Nicola, you don't know about yet, but the new learning management system.
Oh yeah, you should quickly.
So, but there's a whole set of content that we're building there. Gwen, anything from you?
Oh, well, nothing much, just a quickie. Nicola, where do you meet when you meet your mentee?
So we used to meet, I work really close to Marylebone Station. So we used to meet in Starbucks in Marylebone Station.
Okay.
But now we do it over Zoom, obviously with COVID. So, and actually I found that to almost work slightly better in that, you know, she's not got to travel, I've not got to travel. I mean, it's nice to have that personal touch, and I'm sure we'll appreciate it when we're past all of this, but it works really, really well. So, and just going back to Helen as well, just really quickly, is that to say I've always found ILT so good, and to, you know, I've been able to drop them emails all the time and they've given me so much support and materials. But the other thing I just say to everyone, if you ever start a session and you think, like, I don't really know if this is helping, like, I've really doubted myself at times, because you kind of just chatting sometimes and you think, are they getting anything out of this, or am I just talking a load of rubbish? But I think the point is sometimes that's just natural and the normal thing, and that's what I mean by have the confidence. Don't doubt yourself, because I think just talking to an adult that's interested in them and can help them navigate universities. And sometimes, you know, I mentored someone before, not through ILT, who was much younger, and I kind of started to research video games just so I had a connection with him, because but you know, you try and just get an interest with them, and sometimes they're really shy and he wouldn't look at me, and it was really challenging, but we really got there at the end. And I just say persevere and don't doubt yourself. You're the confident one, you go on with the career, and they'll look up to you so much that don't worry if you're sitting in those sessions thinking, I don't really know what I'm talking about, or we didn't do any of that structure or any of that plan, because most of my sessions are not really going to plan. I just have it in the back of my mind so that I have questions to ask. But I think trying not to be too regimented kind of helps, because you know, it's their session really. It's for them to, but they don't really know, because they're not. Yeah. It's not like so basically that at work and they're professionals and they know exactly what they want to talk about, and it's not like.
So it's basically like a natural flow. Just go with how it's actually naturally progressing. Yeah, and
it's funny because sometimes it doesn't feel natural. So if it feels like that to you, don't worry. It's just you know, you're getting to know them, and they're on, you know, completely. Sometimes you find mentor people that are really similar to you and sometimes really different, and you know, it's kind of, don't worry about that chemistry too much, because I think it does just come, and just persevere, and you know, ask them if there's anything they want more out of the session. But often they'll say I don't know, or I don't know, because they think there's a right or wrong answer. And then as you know, so just go with the content if you don't know what else to do, and it does actually help. And then we kind of go off on tangents, and you know, or I do the other Inspiring Leadership Trust training, and I know Lee's doing some of that with her Knowledge Academy, and I sometimes talk about that. So I talk about like, what did I love doing about the growth mindset. So we did a whole session on the growth mindset because I love it, and resilience and taking a break. We did a whole thing on that. So I do look at the materials, but I also use some of the other inspiration from Inspiring Leadership Trust.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Brilliant. Anybody else? I'm conscious. Have you got another couple of minutes, Nicola?
Yeah, it's fine. It's a one-to-one with someone, but it's fine. It's push things back.
As long as it's not one of my girls, then that's okay. So, joke, by the way. Anybody else? Sarah, Sharon, Emma, anybody that would like to ask questions? Because
I've got a quick one, just thinking out loud actually. So I've just finished a mentoring sort of program with Queen Mary University with a second year student, and that worked really well from a fact that we started on a face-to-face basis, and then we moved on to Zoom because of the sort of obviously the COVID-19, etc. So it'll be interesting to know, because obviously that relationship really changed. I know you said it worked really well from a location perspective, Nicola, but I think for us, we're potentially going to be starting from a remote or a distant sort of, and I'd be interested to sort of know sort of how that will impact, I suppose, their ability to sort of trust us, because they're going to be probably within their own home as well. It's, you know, it's quite an odd environment, isn't it, to be able to sort of share things when you've got your, I don't know, younger brothers and sisters, and and all sorts sort of running around, that kind of thing, as opposed to that sort of meet up. So your thoughts on that in terms of, you know, this program starting in a very different way?
I mean, I think I really take the point. I think that, I mean, one thing we did quite quickly was use headsets, and you know, actually I'm not using one right now, and I don't know if you can hear my kids, and just to try and stop the distraction. And we talked about whether she'd go for a walk and just chat. I think video really, really helps. I think doing it on FaceTime or Zoom does really, really help. And I do take your point. I guess I'm just kind of overly enthusiastic. I try and be overly engaging and overly, try not have any of your other screens around, so you're never distracted. And the one thing I try and do when I'm talking to her is my eyes are on her the whole time in terms of talking. And, you know, if hers aren't because she's a bit shy of it, then fine. But it was definitely, I think what surprised me is probably how good younger people are with video.
Yeah, we forget that.
So actually she was completely fine. I think it was more me to start with, and I appreciate that. But I have done it, you know, like I've interviewed someone in my team and got a new joiner in my team completely from video. I have never met him. Actually, it's really funny because I take your point, but now over time and perseverance, it's actually fine. And I feel like I know him, and we have a chat, and our one-to-ones flow, and it's fine. So I just say persevere with it and don't make it an issue. If it was me, just try and just think, but funnily enough, Alana seems absolutely fine with it. Like, and I think they just talk to their friends on video all the time. So. Yeah.
And I'll just add to that as well. So for us onboarding, because actually we were doing our big engagement events around the country and COVID hit. And so we went into lockdown. We had to cancel our events where we were meeting up with the girls personally, onboarding them in a certain way. And we were like, how are we going to do this? And granted, there are some girls that are just going, I'm going to have to wait because I can't do this. And that's okay. And we'll capture them. We're connected. But, you know, the conversations we are having with the mums or the social care workers or, you know, the psychologists along with the women and girls that we're working with. So sometimes it's them all together. But they're just really excited. They cannot wait for this process to begin. And that's phone calls. That's not even a video conversation. And they might not know exactly what it looks like. They might be a little bit shy, some of them. But they're really, and the mums and the carers are really thankful, particularly at this time, for this process kicking off for women and girls that are really struggling. And so this, when they've got nothing really beyond the kind of their own walls is great. The other thing is we when we do get back up and running and we feel it's safe as a charity now, knowing that, you know, the vulnerable communities are harder hit by COVID. So we will be particularly careful about when we create engagement events and not follow kind of maybe the rhythm of the country as a whole. But as a charity, we will be very cautious about when we start to kick off our workshops, our engagement events again. But when we do, we'll be having, we invite the mentors along. If you can make it, you're very welcome. So we'll kind of plan that in as well. We'll communicate things with you. You're very welcome to join, but there will be opportunities for them to engage with people along the way too. Nicola, I'm very conscious. How are you doing for time?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Actually, the person I'm speaking to has been delayed on a call too. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Have we got any more questions then?
And maybe we'll just add to Lee quickly what you're saying. The COVID thing it surprised me how much. Oh, sorry, it's my son here working from home. Josh, this is everyone. Say hi. So it's surprised me how much it has hit everybody, and I was shocked when I heard about how much lesson teaching Alana was getting, which is virtually nothing, and she's lower sixth. I mean, shocked, and felt so sad because my son's in private education, but he is getting more at age just turned 5 in reception than Alana is getting in lower sixth, which is to me like, what? So I think, like Lee was saying, particularly this time, I think it's amazing. So don't undervalue what you can do, and just talking to them about self-motivation, or, you know, like I said, scheduling times with her brother because he likes watching Netflix in the day because he's younger, and then she can't work because Netflix is on. So she's working every evening and she's tired, you know, and trying to do, I kind of mentored her through emailing her teacher to see if, because she wasn't getting any feedback on her work. She submitted this work and she's just not getting any feedback at all. So we talked about how she might send an email and how she might phrase that email so the teacher doesn't feel attacked, but also perhaps she gets a bit more if she wants. So I think particularly right now, I wouldn't undervalue the amount you can give, even if it's by video, even if it's just talking to them about next year and what they might need to do. And the fact that she should, I don't want to scare her, but to say, like, to lose a whole term in lower sixth is a bit worrying. So how can she keep herself on top, and using the summer holidays in a way to kind of make up for a bit of her lost time. So I just thought I'd share that. Sorry.
Great. No, perfect. Any other questions? I'm conscious, Jenny, Sharon, Sarah.
I guess I have just a quick question, and thank you for that. It's really, really, really useful and interesting. But how often, like before COVID and I guess now, do you meet sort of face to face or on Zoom? And is there much contact in between times on other channels? Are you talking on the phone or messaging or any of those things?
So we aim for once a month. Now with my work diary, that sometimes didn't work. I worked for a French bank. I was in Paris a lot. Sometimes that didn't work, but roughly once a month we'd have that session. And like I said, like, I'll sometimes check in with Alana, I'll see something and I'll think of her. And now it's a lot on us. I don't know how busy your working lives are. My life at the moment is more hectic than I've ever had it, because I've got 2 young kids at home, trying to educate them with a husband and a full-time job. So just being kind to yourself and knowing I'd love to check in with her more, but she's on my mind, and I'll see some materials, or I'll think I hear something like a podcast and I'll send her a link. So we have some of that contact. It's not loads, but we do kind of try and have a monthly session to like catch up, and that's usually quite fixed.
Right.
So once we finish one session, we'll book in the next one.
How long's the session for?
So we usually meet for
and how long's the session for on average, or is there no time limit on it? Or
there's no time limit. I mean, usually time limit is usually my diary, or usually we schedule them for an hour, but I usually book up the extra half hour because I don't want it to seem intimidating for her, like, oh, you're speaking to me for hours. But kind of having the end almost helps draw it up as well. Sometimes when you're in that, I don't know really if this is useful, but having the flexibility that you're not saying, right, I've got to go, you're not important to me, so I kind of schedule them with her for an hour, and then I block out an extra half an hour, so if it goes over, we're not rushing off and things.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that everything on the questions front? Do we think we can let Nicola go? If you've got any more questions, by the way, you can email us afterwards, and we'll make sure that we pull together an FAQ and help everybody with those. But shall we move on and let Nicola go?
Thanks, everyone. Good luck. I'm
Nicola,
sure it's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great day. Okay. So moving through then, just some of the slides here. Now, this is by Tim Galway, The Inner Game of Work. But just thinking about the role of, and thank you again, Gwen, but thinking again of how do you drive performance? Because this is for us about, without using the language of performance with them, but for us to know that actually what we're doing is we're navigating them towards driving greater performance, navigating them towards resilience, navigating them towards careers. So how do you actually get them there? And how do you get them to achieve their full potential? So this is an adaptation of a framework by Tim, which is potential. So somebody's potential, performance equals potential minus interferences. And the role of the mentor is to really help to reduce the interferences that get in the way of them actually achieving their potential. So there'll be barriers, there'll be blockers, there'll be fears, there'll be anxieties, there'll be, a disconnect maybe sometimes. But all of that is data and insight that helps you to reduce down those interferences step by step along the way and navigate them towards achieving their full potential. And it might be slower, so to be patient in this process. It's not, again, like working in organizations, but to really navigate them towards that full potential and get them to believe in themselves and create a vision for what great could look like, and actually the steps that they can take to help them develop along the way. So that's just a nice little tool and framework. Let me just, sorry, this screen is getting in the way of my actual slides. Here we go. So rules of engagement. You will get background information. So when we connect you with a mentee, you will have all the background. Alana does risk assessments. So our Alana, not Nicola's Alana, does risk assessments. She works with the social workers, the care workers, the parents to craft all of this information and background that helps us to understand the girl. She also has conversations with the girl directly, or woman, because remember, we don't have an upper age limit. We don't believe in that because everybody has potential to be on this program. So you will get that, and we will work with you around what does that mean for your mentoring. Really respect confidentiality, because through this process you will get some exposure, not the whole exposure. We will not share everything with you, but you will get sufficient exposure around what's going on for the girl or woman that that you need to be aware of. So do they have attachment issues? Have they self-harmed in the past? All of those things. Are they part of it? Have they been part of a child exploitation ring? Are they easily coerced and influenced? You will know those things when you start the program with us, but just to really respect confidentiality through this process and be careful about what you share with other people or certainly online in terms of social media and things like that. So be careful of that confidentiality, and it sits between, and you can even have those conversations around confidentiality when you meet your mentor, that it's about building trust, and the conversations remain in the room, but noting that actually things of concern do need to be channeled up to the charity and our supporting partners. Establishing boundaries and contracting. So, you know, and Nicola spoke about this, location, public locations only, or offices. Be careful of the risks associated. We had one mentor that wanted to invite a mentee to their home, another mentor that wanted to go to the individual's home, and they were starting to expose themselves to something that they should just not do. So be careful about things like location, some of the language that you use, really establish some boundaries, and we can talk to you about those. If you're a little bit concerned in any areas, we can talk to you about what those boundaries might look like separately at a one-to-one, or we could even do another session, but you do have some online training as well. Contracting, so be clear with them, you know, how often, where, how, when, how long you'll be meeting. So there's a real clarity around the process that you're going to take them through. And if things do kind of go wrong, so if diary does get in the way, what's the process for how you're going to communicate with each other? So you just know that you're aware from the very beginning. Be careful of those blurred boundaries, your own and theirs. And not overstepping them. So kind of be quite rigid with them to a point. Know your own triggers. We've all gone back to those ACEs. We all have past life experiences, but those should not be brought to the table, and know what might be triggering for you. Gwen has kindly on this call offered some ongoing supervision. She's a trained supervisor, and we will be leveraging her to run the supervision sessions with you. So whilst you're doing mentoring, you will get supervision along the way. Bring to the table your concerns, your observations, things that might be going on for you. You're learning anything that will be helpful to the process, and we will support and facilitate you through it. Caring too much, but also being a little bit guilt-free. You will care passionately about them. They will, you know, it's hard for them not to become a little bit of your protege. Be careful of that, but also be guilt-free around the caring. But know when you're stepping over those boundaries as well. So again, we can support you if you have any concerns or you would like to talk things through. Commitments. These guys have been let down so many times along the way. Commitment is so important. Commitment to the charity in terms of, I know that we throw things at you like safeguarding, policy, process, and some of it, to be honest, is quite intense and it's a bit tiring, but it's really important. So commitment from a safeguarding perspective, but also commitments to the girl themselves and commitments to the charity. And if you've got any concerns, again, speak to us. Be aware of the hat you're wearing. The girls that get generally referred to us actually have a support system that sits around them. What we're doing is supporting their transition to a different kind of life, their transition towards confidence, empowerment, employment. We are not a counsellor. And be careful of the boundaries. Again, do not step into that counselling type position. And if you've got concerns, if they have not got those provisions and support network in place, come to us so we can actually start to talk about what that support network could look like and make the connections. But that is not this charity. That is not what we do. Mentor, absolutely. Coach, advise, and know what's needed at any time. Slip across the different needs, but never counselling. Maintain the neutrality. Sometimes they will kind of have really strong opinions about who's in their network and try to draw you into their dramas, potentially. Not always, but potentially. And be careful about how you show up and how you connect with them. That shows that you're building that trusting relationship. You are compassionate. But be careful of the empathy factor, which puts yourself in their shoes because you don't have the full picture and they're managing a lot of biological things going on quite often, as well as the external stuff that might be happening. So maintain that neutrality and help them to think through things in a way that they can navigate through the other side and think differently. That's part of this process. Not to make your emotions wrong, theirs or yours, so... but just give them strategies for dealing with it. And again, there'll be tools that will be online that will help you in terms of strategies. So resilience tools, health and well-being tools, and make them kind of really simple strategies. I was chatting to our Alana earlier, simple strategies. It could be about, the structure that they place into how they get up each morning is a big strategy for them. Brushing their teeth, combing their hair, kind of self-care. Big strategy for them, small strategy for many of us, yeah? So help them to manage their emotions, and supervision, as I said, that will be provided to you. This is the aims and the outcomes. So if you think about this as a framework for what we're trying to create, so back to the ACEs, what we're trying to do is to overcome the long-term and even short-term implications of ACEs, so pathways into criminality, etc., or the long-term health implications. What we're trying to do is to do a little bit of an intervention. Now, we can't solve everything. That is also not for us. We, be careful of that as well. But what we do want to do is to create trusted relationships. And have role models. So to be the role model for them, build that trust and be the role model for them. Everything that they might not have in their life, that is probably what they need from you. You're there to unleash their potential and break down the barriers, both the internal barriers, but the external ones as well. So many of them have aspirations, hopes, dreams. They're to come, one individual wants to be a neurobiologist. Or I can't even remember the phrase that she came up with. It's probably the wrong phrase. It's outside of me. But we've got great connections, okay? Another one wants to be in the digital space, the digital design. Another one wants to be a beautician. Another one wants to be in legal. It's a whole range of things. Now, you might not have the networks. You might not have the connections, but we can potentially help with some of those experiences. So feed things back into us. So the internal barriers to unleash their potential is what you work through in terms of your mentoring, and we support with the provision. But also the external barriers to getting the experiences on their CV, the exposure to what they need. Let us work with you to help to break down those barriers as well. Physical, mental, emotional resilience. Again, as they go through this, they will be in different there'll be peaks and there'll be troughs. We've got lots of online provision for you and for them. So help them with that emotional resilience that gets them through. Health and well-being, as I said, routines are really great. But, fitness, what are they doing in the fitness space, the well-being? And it might be a later conversation rather than an early conversation, but they might point to the fact that they really enjoy certain sports as well. If you can think about health and well-being as one of the areas of our compass, which I'll show you in a second, it's a really important factor to resilience and performance. So think about that too, hold it in your mind. And when the time is right, have the right conversations with them. We're navigating them towards empowerment and financial security. Again, the work that Alana's doing and the research that shows that, this is the stuff that breaks down domestic violence. If somebody is financially empowered, my own scenario, I could not have left my home with black bin bags, my kids, and my dogs, and that was it. I could have not left my home a few years ago if I did not have the financial security that I do have, the career that I do have. I would have made different choices that would have kept me contained in a situation. It will be the same for them. So our intention is to help empower them and create that financial security. It is kind of right up there. That's the big stretch, by the way, right? So any of these stepping stones, that's the big stretch to get them into careers, but we know we can do it. We probably need business support, more business support along the way. And then community engagements. What's their social network that sits around them? What's the right social network that sits around them? That's really important to kind of have different kind of networks that are positive rather than, detracting from the development process. But also when we talk about community, it's that give back. People will refer to the compass. When they go through our academies, when they're given content, it's all aligned to this Inspiring Leadership Compass. You will see it online. I won't go into it in detail. We're going to create some online videos around it. But in essence, these are the areas that we'll be covering. And it doesn't have to be structured in this way necessarily for your mentoring, as Nicholas spoke about. But this is the journey online and in their masterclasses that we'll be encouraging them to go through. So morals, integrities, values and belief systems. What's at their core? What do they believe in? And therefore, what are they going to articulate? How do they find their voice, the courageous voice out there? That's kind of the morals, values and belief systems. How do they navigate? How do they understand other people's? So they'll be getting content that helps them in that space. But if you hear that they've been on a masterclass or they've done some online content, then you can talk about those things in your mentoring. Purpose, vision and execution. So helping them to craft that vision for where they want to get to, what brings meaning and purpose into their lives. But then how do they plan? How do they take decisive action? Because it's one thing to have a vision, but then the steps that they need to get there. And that will be the role of the mentor as well. I won't go through all of these in detail, but you've got HQ, which is physical, mental, and emotional well-being, cognitive and collaborative intelligence. There'll be lots of content online, everything from mindfulness to hopefully in the future we'll get some fitness programs to how do they present themselves for work, how do they build a CV. There'll be a whole range of stuff online. And we can help you if you want to navigate towards certain content as well. So you don't have to look through the plethora and the mix of it. If you've got specific topics that are of interest, just let us know. And the final one will be around legacy. So as they go through their journey, we'll be looking to them to become the advocates and stewards for other people. There'll be, if we think of Georgia, who's spoken at our events, absolutely phenomenal young woman, but her background, and she talks about it, she was abused sexually, she self-harmed, she was had mental health challenges, she lived in a refuge, she has just been through the whole, but she's actually now in university just up the road from me. We've given her we've actually invested in her in terms of being a mental health first aid trainer. So now she can consult back into organizations, earn money from that consulting as well, or donate her time for free. But she's now given back to the community. And we like them to think about those things too, not just to be about self, but to be about contribution back. Some comparison, coaching, mentoring. What I would just say here, you'll have the slides, and I'm very conscious of time, but coaching is about facilitating their best thinking. So using great questions for them to come through with the answers. So it's not about being directive. It's kind of very focused. It has an outcome that you want to get, and it's probably more of a shorter program. Mentoring for us is a longer potential program. It could be a year, but you might decide actually the mentoring relationship needs to last longer. And that's okay because they're getting so much from that relationship. It might be that we need to swap the mentor because maybe they need something different at different times. But this is about using your skill, your experience, your subject matter, to help the mentee. And if you don't have them, we'll help to provide those experiences for them. It's completely confidential. That's a bit of a no-brainer. But you can act as a sounding board and a critical friend to some of the thinking that they're going through as well. These are a couple of models. There's going to be some tools. So, if, you know, in terms of structuring a conversation, but actually it's not always about structure, because it is about that kind of relationship. So if you need a model to work towards, you've got the GROW model, which is one of the most popular coaching models that's out there. And that is understanding what they want. So setting the goal for what they want. And you can do that within the session, but also overall as well. What is happening right now, because they'll have some challenges, some blockers. So as you unpick, you'll start to explore the reality and test some of their assumptions around what's going on. Is that real? Or is that an assumption? And talk through those things. Options, what are the different things that they could do? Open the mind up and then start to focus in, well, what's the way forward? And then there's the Oscar model. And again, it's very similar. So what choices do they have? What actions? How do you review? What's the situation? What outcome are you looking for? So similar thing, but just a slightly different model. The non-directive versus directive. So coaching and mentoring. So directive is about telling, instructing. So this is kind of a continuum, a spectrum of the styles that you might use in this session. And remember, part of this process, mentoring can quite often be quite directive. There's a beautiful book by Nancy Klein, which is about the igniting the thinking in others. It's called, she's done Time to Think, More Time to Think. She's a beautiful writer. She's even more beautiful when she shows up, because she does practice what she preaches. But telling and instructing, when is it right to give advice and offer advice, versus when is it you want to ignite the thinking in them? Because that's what you want to do as well as part of the skill, is to give them confidence to be able to think for themselves, to create solutions for themselves, to navigate through that process. And the deep listening, the reflecting, the paraphrasing that you might play to, that helps to do that, maybe pulling them to help them solve their own problems versus pushing your content on them. So be really aware in your sessions about where you're at, and how you want to show up and what's important to them in the moment, and important to them based on what they think they need, but also what they probably do need in terms of that confidence around thinking too. There's different levels of listening. So level one, it's the internal. What does this mean to me? My thoughts, my judgments, my feelings, the internal chatter that might go on, the second guessing, our own internal biases. So be careful of that level one thinking and the inner dialogue, some subconscious or conscious, that might be happening. Level two is focused. It's attentive, it's neutral, it's interested, and it's aware, listening for their words and their expression and their emotion. So it's laser-like in its focus. But then level three listening, this global listening, is about using all the senses. And sometimes actually all the time, you'll need to tap into this, because it helps you to use your intuition to understand the energy, the mood, the tone, the impact, and the things that are not being said. And this is a particular skill for these women and girls who quite often don't have the voice, the ability to articulate, is helping, being aware what might be going on for them too. So think about the levels of listening and where you really need to be. And level three is clearly the optimum level. We've got an online learning management system, and it's got gamification, and they can win awards and get certificates, and there's little videos, tools to read. As I say, it goes around that compass. You will also be given access to this learning management system. And let me just very quickly share, because you can navigate it for yourself, what this system looks like. Okay, so this is from a back-end perspective, so it doesn't look particularly great, by the way, but from mentoring, so mentoring beneficiaries, and you can see the introduction here. The presentation that I'm doing today is on there. We'll put the recorded presentation, so you've actually not just got the presentation, you've got the recording, but you've got welcome packs in there. It's got some tools, how to kickstart, some of the policies, process, do's and don'ts. Really encourage you to read that mentor welcome pack. Read about DBS checks and the coaching and grow models that just very quickly touched upon today. All of these models are in here. How to set smart objectives, inspirational quotes. So there's a whole list of things, again, sent through by Gwen, which are inspirational quotes. You could probably tap into that and just learn a few things for yourself as well. Some deep tools, and then some research as well. So you can get to learn more. And just to give a flavour, if I go into a learner profile, and if I go to, for example, MQ, which I spoke about, again, this is back end rather than front end necessarily. But if we go to, I want to watch a video on inspiration to inspire me.
I used to think the best way to work out in the world is to make sure the person not in the arena.
Okay. So they will get a whole set of resources that are linked to the compass around, that will motivate them. So they're a blended learning. So they're reading, materials to watch, inspirational quotes, and sometimes questionnaires as well. Later on, we'll produce kind of more testing, again, assessment of knowledge as we get more sophisticated. But that's going to be available to them as well. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Process, you're already partway through this. Oh, no. Bear with me. Bit of a malfunction there. Do you see that as a whole screen? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so process. This is the process that we're taking you through. Training for you is along the right-hand side. We will clearly share tools in addition to that, but you can get access to lots of different content. You've been through your DBS checks, clearly. What we will move towards now is mental matching, if we have not done it already. Again, be patient with us through this process, because actually it's going to take us time, particularly with COVID-19, to reach out into communities of women and to get those mentoring relationships set up. It will take us time to do that. So it's not through lack of initiative on our side, but trying to do things digitally, remotely, and through other organizations is quite a challenge. One of our challenges is actually how do we get our message out there that goes beyond the middle organizations, so girls can access directly and we can get more mentees onto the program. But you will be matched. We are setting you up ready for the matching process. You will have monthly supervision every other month. Sorry, it says bi-monthly here. It should be every other month. And we will kickstart that process. We will give you access to online content, the learning management system, and also Facebook Workplace as well. Now, we have a risk assessment process and we have an escalation route with our safeguarding liaison officer. So if you push things up to myself and Alana in the first instance, we will run, so if something happens, an incident happens, if you've got some concerns, we've got a way of documenting it. We've got a way of reporting it. So dependent on the referral partner, we will have different processes dependent on the referral partner. Or for example, there was somebody coaching, Deborah was coaching her individual just before Christmas, and her mentee was really struggling with the lead up to Christmas. Like herself and her husband actually had mental health challenges. They had a young son, and we were able to put lots of different mechanisms in place. So we tried to get a little bit creative. So we spoke to a children's charity to get toy boxes delivered. We spoke to a mental health charity to get the support that they needed. We gave them content connected with the Citizens Advice Bureau. So what I would say is escalate things up, and we will try and work on strategies. And if we're not dealing with things internally, we will navigate them towards the right process. And don't think that anything is too early or, you know, too minor to come to us on. If you've just got a little bit of an inkling that something might not be right, speak to us, and speak to us urgently. You can pick up the phone or you can email us. Picking up the phone is clearly is the fastest route to connecting with us. Next steps: learning management system, Facebook Workplace. Use that as a way to, it's a contained environment, so nobody else can see it. It's not an open Facebook Workplace. It's just for you alone. Share content, share learnings, use that as a way to communicate with each other. We will also communicate with you about events and different things like that that are going on through Facebook Workplace. If you're not on there yet, please get on there and let us know if we've not sent you an invite. The learning management system you'll have access to. We will start our mentor matching process. As I say, please be patient as we onboard girls. Ongoing supervision will be in place, ongoing access to training. We'll have some lovely events coming up. We'll make sure you have access to that too. Safeguarding policies and procedures, they will be within your learning management system as well. Be aware of them and sign the documents. We will point you to them, but sign the documents that you need to sign. That is everything, apart from to say our community needs inspirational women like you now more than ever. And to this question is this statement is a little bit of an adaptation, but never question whether a small group of leaders can change the world. And in fact, history has taught us it is the only thing that ever has. And so the ripple effect of the work that you do in this charity is really quite profound. It goes beyond even the session itself to something deeper that sits with them as they go through their lives, as they build their own families, as they connect with their communities. The impact is profound. So thank you so much for today. Just a few minutes for any final questions.
Hi, no, it's Emma. I don't have any questions, but I think that was really helpful. Thank you. It was really good to hear all of that, and it puts it all into context. Having read quite a bit, I do have to go now. Sorry, because I've got to.
That's okay. So. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. Everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah, I found that really helpful, Lee. It was really good to hear from Nicola as well.
Yeah.
And it just gives you that bit more understanding of how the process works and everything like that. And I think the learning management system is really good as well. You know, that it's there and that we've got access to that.
Yeah, perfect. I'm so pleased, and we are here to support you along the way. So really excited to have you on board. Any questions or comments from anybody else?
Sorry, but you go.
No, it's fine. You go.
I was just going to say, it's really interesting, Lee. Thank you very much. It was good to see it and put it into perspective. I'm really quite excited. But I also want to say, as well as doing the supervision, if people who are new to mentoring want to just have a confidential, you know, oh, how do I do this type chat, I'm happy to offer that as well.
You've just given me goosebumps. You are the most amazing woman, Gwen, with your giving and just the way that you've supported this charity. So thank you. Gwen is a trained supervisor. She is a phenomenal talent and a coach, and so do tap into that as well, because she will be able to help you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I was just going to thank you, Lee, and you know, you and I, we've been in touch as part of the resilience community together with Gwen, and I was just going to offer, I mean, just following the suite of Gwen and her experience. Obviously, I may be a little less experienced, but I'm a coach and a supervisor, and have been dealing with less privileged teenagers actually in Turkey. So yeah, I'm here to support in any way I can.
Brilliant. Maybe if we could take the supervision offline and think about a rhythm for how we'd like to work, and then send a communication out, I think that could really work well. So thank you. I would love to tap into that as well. I think this community will need the support and supervision along the way.
Bucci, I think, sorry, I was going to say, Bucci, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, but it'd be quite good if we had a three-way or something.
Yeah, I'll get Bridget to set that up.
Okay.
I just wanted to say it's been great. Thank you so much. And I'm really enthusiastic and eager to get started. So yeah, thank you. Really good.
Thank you so much, and good luck. We must catch up around victim support and see how things are going there.
Yeah.
Get more girls on the program. So don't let COVID stop us. Get in the way. So okay, anybody else? Is that everything? Okay, so we're going to say our goodbyes. Email us if you have any questions. All of this is going to go online. You will be given access. Have a play with the system. Let me know. I'm still playing with the system. So if it's a bit clunky, I'm so sorry. Give your feedback along the way. I'm hoping it's going to be an amazing experience for you. But help us to keep making this the best process ever. So have a lovely, hopefully sunny weekend, and look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
See everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.